Last time on Backlog Bingo, I played through Halo Combat Evolved, Sonic Adventure 2, and Myst3 Exile, and knocked off 9 squares on a bingo board. You can see how all of that broke down in the previous episode, but if you're all caught up, well, you know the drift by now, so here's where the current bingo board stands. While it has solid lines developing, they're not exactly easy to fill out. Maybe if we buy a dolphin from a vending machine, but that's not likely. Hopefully. I'm willing to bet that those lines where we already have 3 squares filled in won't be the ones that win this card, that's just kinda how this goes, but we'll just have to wait and see. Before we jump back into the board, I want to remind you that I'm letting you vote on the games that I play for an upcoming Backlog Bingo special to celebrate hitting 1,000 subscribers. You still have until December 31st to nominate your picks, so check out the Google form in the description or pinned comment to cast your votes if you haven't already. Right, back to the wheel to spin for another game. Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy. I'm kind of an idiot for not realizing this earlier, but yeah, the N. Sane Trilogy is a compilation of 3 games, so if I play them all back to back, which I did, that will be 6 games beaten for this card instead of 4. Maybe beating 10 games isn't far-fetched after all. Anyway, as a Nintendo kid, I never had the opportunity to experience Crash's PlayStation adventures, and while I was certainly aware of the marsupial during his multi-platform years, I never played any of those. I did buy the N. Sane Trilogy a few years ago and had tried it out, but dropped it pretty quickly. Later, I played It's About Time when it launched, which was a lot of fun, and now I get to go back in time to see where Crash got his start. As a quick note, I focused primarily on just beating the levels and getting the crystals for this playthrough. I collected a few of the box gems, but didn't bother with any of the colored gems, relics, or secret stages because, well, I recorded this a few days before flying out of town for a bit and wanted to make sure I was done before then. I might go back to fully complete this one day, but not right now. Which is fine with me because I still enjoyed this Crash into the past. While it might be a bit dated, I appreciate that this more or less brought the gameplay over from the PlayStation days rather than refining it too much. When you're preserving the original level design, keeping that intact just makes more sense. I do have to admit this started off on a sour note because I was not a fan of the first game. Yes, I just said that I like that the retro gameplay is brought over, warts and all, but Crash 1 does suffer the most from that idea. I'm not just talking about how challenging it is, although yeah, this one is a frustrating slog sometimes thanks to its irritating level design. Looking at you, Road to Nowhere. While some of the difficulty is annoying, there are other levels that I thought were fun and engaging despite how hard they were. Heavy machinery and toxic waste may not be a walk in the park, but I was having a blast tackling them. But when this game wasn't fully balanced or grinding my gears, it was putting me to sleep. I think in this regard it's the aesthetics. The jungle setting just isn't very interesting, and even when it goes for other environments like temples or factories, they don't do much to shake this game up. I don't think it's controversial to say that this is the weakest of the trilogy, but hey, it's off the backlog. Crash 2 was more my speed. Something about the levels seemed much more interesting to me. Partially it's the different level themes, but primarily it's the slide. This is a godsend for platforming and something the first game was sorely missing in hindsight. It makes the side-scrolling sections far better and was really helpful in levels like Behaving and its numerous pits. I even enjoyed the rocket stages once I got used to the controls, which did take a bit, but once I did, flying through the space stations are pretty awesome, and is the only part I like about the disappointing Cortex boss. Yes, I know the secret ending is far better, you don't have to tell me. And it's still hard, make no mistake. Cold Hard Crash is infamous for a reason, and truthfully, it was only this hallway that got on my nerves, but hot damn, did it get on my nerves. I can only imagine how much hell it is to get all the boxes here. As for Crash Bandicoot Warped, this was my favorite thanks to the tighter stage design and variety. Thanks to the Time Twister taking Crash and Coco to various times and locations, this kicks the aesthetics into high gear and brings in some fun new level mechanics to go alongside it. I might not have liked the motorcycle stages all that much, but jet skiing and flying a plane were a nice change of pace, even if the latter stages were too simple. On that note, maybe it was because I was used to the gameplay by this point, or because you get more moves and upgrades in this one, but I also found this the easiest of the trilogy, at least just going through all the levels. Not that it was a cakewalk, but I had plenty of lives, I never game overed, and the new moves like the Death Tornado Spin and Fruit Bazooka make what might otherwise be tough hazards kind of a joke. There are some annoying stages like Boneyard and its lava pools, and Tomb Waiter and all the waiting you have to do, but overall, it's a little breezier. Except for Bug Light, that one sucked. Anyway, let's start filling out the bingo card before I go insane. You enter all of the levels in Cortex Strikes Back and Warped by going through a portal, so check that off. Hang 8 introduces us to the jet board, and with that, we can go surfing on the water. In Bear It and Bear Down, these orcas jump out of the water, and despite them being called killer whales, according to their taxonomy, they are dolphins, so I've found a dolphin. That probably means I should have marked the dinosaur square for any of the birds we've seen so far, because going by the same logic, birds are dinosaurs, but that doesn't matter because looky here, there are plenty of dinosaurs in Warped. And lastly, these frog princes in the medieval stages will kiss you if they catch you, and although it was unwarranted, you do get a kiss. That's 5 squares across 3 games, and after beating them in a total of 11 hours, 58 minutes, and 44 seconds, we can lock them in. But you might have noticed something. All of these squares were filled in by Crash 2 and 3, which means that the original Crash Bandicoot is the first game in this video series to give us no bingo squares, so it is my honor to introduce Crash Bandicoot as our first inductee into the official Backlog Bingo Hall of Shame for games that are no help for the bingo card. Which is not an indictment of the game itself, although it is probably my least favorite I've played so far for the series. We are tantalizingly close to a completed card now, but a lot of these square combinations might be pretty hard to hit, so let's spin that wheel once again and see what we get. Metal Gear Solid. This was another one that eluded me because of PlayStation exclusivity, and I didn't get a chance to experience anything from this series until Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I remember the GameStop employee telling us how to unlock Snake when we picked up our pre-order, which of course we did right away. Over the years, I'd pick up the Twin Snakes and later the HD Collection and Phantom Pain for the Xbox 360 around the time of the latter's release, and I did a little marathon. I decided to go in chronological story order rather than release order, so I played Snake Eater, then Peace Walker, Phantom Pain, Metal Gear 2, the Twin Snakes, and then stopped with Sons of Liberty because Guns of the Patriots is still PS3 locked. I also had no way to play Portable, and Ground Zeroes was still going for 20 or 30 bucks, which was frankly inexcusable, so there were gaps, but with most of the series under my belt, I fell in love with it. The stealth action, the open-endedness, the memorable characters, the gripping yet simultaneously ridiculous storyline, I was hooked. And that's true of Solid as well, now that I've finally given that a look. It has been a while since I've played a stealth game, so it's possible I was just missing that, but sneaking around Shadow Moses Island, finding weapons and ammo, checking my surroundings for guards, cameras, and helpful hiding places, it was all great stuff. The AI maybe isn't super advanced anymore. I mean, these genome soldiers are kinda stupid, even if they can be deadly. But I know that a lot of their behavior, like noticing sounds and footprints, was revolutionary for the time, even if some of them are expected gameplay elements now. Admittedly, it did take me a little bit to get used to the controls, particularly on the PS5 controller. I'm just used to the confirm and cancel buttons being switched, even considering the original PlayStation symbol meanings. And sure, I could remap the controls, but at least when it comes to retro games, I like sticking with the original layout whenever possible. It also unfortunately means that I accidentally submitted to Revolver Ocelot's torture because I stupidly adjusted my controller while I was mashing, forcing me to reload my last save point right after Meryl got shot. I'll take responsibility for that, although the touchpad on the PS5 controller being so large and easy to activate didn't help matters. And since this isn't Twin Snakes, I got to experience all the backtracking. Truthfully, the hunt for the PSG-1, even though I did it twice, wasn't bad at all, and while freezing and heating up the card key was annoying, at least we got some story tidbits along the way during that final stretch. Simple little things like that might be a bother, but there's so many cool gameplay moments that I still loved this mission. Battling Metal Gear Rex was a great capstone, even if it's not the first time Snake has done this, and while the mechanics of how Psycho Mantis works are already well documented, it was just as engaging as it was when I first saw it in action. On that note, yes, I have technically played the story of the original Solid through the Twin Snakes, and as I'm sure some Metal Gear fans will attest, that's not exactly the best way to experience MGS1's narrative. Thankfully, with the Master Collection Volume 1 on my PS5, I remedied that at last. I did that Metal Gear marathon about 9 years ago, so I definitely became rusty on the lore, but even disregarding have experienced this story through Twin Snakes already, I was still invested. I actually probably value this part of the story even more now since I'm older and I can appreciate more of the finer geopolitics and character interactions. This story may not be as emotionally impactful as Snake Eater or as intricate and terrifyingly prescient as Sons of Liberty, but it is just as good as I'm sure this was back in 1998. It helps that it tackles themes like nuclear war, private militarization, war profiteering, and the arms race in ways that are unfortunately timeless, or at least understandable by anyone who's been affected by conflict. It would be great if this game wouldn't beat us over the head with those themes at every second, though. To a degree, I can accept the long-winded, sometimes recursive dialogue as long as the plot underlying it is intriguing, and in Solid's case, it definitely is. But it becomes tiring by the end, and I know that this isn't even the worst of it in that regard. All I can think during that monologue with Liquid on the burning Metal Gear is shut up and let me punch you, I'm tired. But sometimes it works wonders. Even though I knew it would happen and had already experienced it through Twin Snakes, I still teared up a bit during Sniper Wolf's death scene because it was just a beautiful moment. And if it can still make me emotional, then I guess Metal Gear still has plenty of surprises left for me. Here's the thing though, as amazing as this game is, in the context of the bingo board, it is absolutely unhelpful. There were several repeats, like the various trapdoors, cutscenes being in a different visual style, and of course, Snake screaming when dying. But nothing new. The closest I could find, believe it or not, was Fart, courtesy of Johnny Sasaki here, who makes this lovely noise when you're in prison. That sounded more like his stomach is rumbling in pain rather than an actual fart to me, and my neutral third party agrees. No doubt Johnny probably farted up a storm in that bathroom, but we can't confirm that, so I can't count it. Too bad this is an MGS4. Which means that Metal Gear Solid will also join the Backlog Bingo Hall of Shame. Again, don't take that as an indictment of the game itself. I loved it, and I'm glad I finally played it. It just wasn't any help for Backlog Bingo. Anyway, if you count the 10 training VR missions and the extended briefing cutscene you can access in the main menu, and you don't count having to re-grab the PSG-1 and refight Sniper Wolf to do the torture scene again, my final playtime was 9 hours, 14 minutes, and 58 seconds. Granted, a significant portion of that is watching cutscenes and codec calls, but that's what my footage length says, so hey. There are a few other Metal Gear games on my backlog list, so I'm sure we'll return to this series at some point, probably either playing VR missions or watching Guns of the Patriots once Master Collection Volume 2 comes out. For now, we should head back to the wheel and see if we can get a game that actually gets us a bingo square. Alien Isolation. I love Alien, by which I mean the 1979 film. It's one of my favorites. Not that I dislike the rest of the series, I just haven't seen most of the other movies, and what I have seen doesn't compare to the masterful dread and set design of Ridley Scott's original. Aliens is great for its own reasons, and I suppose Romulus was fine, but I'm still working my way through the rest of the films. Because while my game backlog is substantial, my film backlog is probably way worse. But my love of the original film sparked an interest in Alien Isolation since it launched. This came out when I was in college, and watching my roommates play it, not to mention hearing people praise it over the years, was enough to hook me in. Perfect time to play it too, since it's the 10-year anniversary and a sequel was announced just this year. Now that I've played it myself though, I gotta say, I think its reputation might be a bit overblown. It's good, don't get me wrong, I didn't find it great. I know we don't exactly have great options when it comes to Alien video game adaptations, but I can't help but feel a tad underwhelmed. Although to start with a positive, it nails the aesthetic from the film flawlessly. The dark retro-futurist architecture and the ambient hissing and humming of a dying space station pioneered by Ron Cobb and Chris Foss is just perfect for a survival horror game, and they brought it over seamlessly. That matching of aesthetics goes a long way in not just making this seem like Alien, but also setting it apart from other sci-fi horror games. The twisting flesh and viscera that the late H.R. Giger contributed is also amazing to see in virtual form, and hey, the Xenomorph is such a fantastic creature design that I will never tire of seeing her in action. To that end, everyone praises the alien AI in Isolation, and yes, it is impressive and super terrifying. We're all pretty used to enemies patrolling environments by now, but when this thing is hunting you, you never feel like the smartest thing in the room, and that makes confronting it far scarier. dynamically adjusting its search patterns based on your movement, doubling back on itself, finding creative solutions to figuring out where you are, and of course, brute force, it can seemingly do it all. It could have been easy for an invincible enemy like this to be either too cheap or too scripted, and the team at Creative Assembly did a great job avoiding both states. Sure, sometimes the alien happened to pop in at just the right time, like I'm a fridge and he's looking for a midnight snack and I had no way to avoid it, and yeah, save points can be pretty far apart, but while it's frustrating in the moment, I don't mind it considering its survival horror genre. That makes the alien encounters far and away the highlights, and thankfully, they aren't so plentiful that you become sick of dealing with these creatures. That said, Alien Isolation is kind of a one-trick pony, so to speak. Everything involving the Xenomorph is fantastic, but that's only half of the game, really, and the other enemies cannot hold a candle. The hostile humans on the Sevastopol are barely a threat with their kinda dinky guns, and while the working Joes are dangerous if they catch you, they are just a bit too easy to avoid entirely or deal with. At least until they stop being vulnerable to the EMP mine at Stun Baton, then they just become jerks. Still, with your limited movement options and a general lack of resources, this adventure can be pretty dang challenging, which is appropriate. I mean, this is a survival game. It should be hard because surviving in a scenario like this would be hard. But disregarding all of that, my main issue with Alien Isolation is that at some point, it ceases to be a gripping, horrific game about surviving the odds and more about stumbling around and praying that you'll get a moment's peace or that the alien will stop just insta-killing you. Yeah, I praised its AI earlier, and I respect the hell out of how it works, but playing this for the first time, you're not going to know the best routes and places to hide, so at some point, some dickery is going to occur that sends you back by 10 minutes, maybe repeatedly. It's not enough to kill my enjoyment overall, but it certainly got on my nerves on more than one occasion. But at least the gameplay was consistently interesting, which is more than I can say for the story. Flat characters, disinterested voice acting, and very little stakes beyond just surviving. When it isn't straight up copying or mimicking the film, it's going through the most basic motions for survival horror in space. Maybe one or two set pieces got me going, like this final stretch through an active tram line where you have to dodge train cars barreling towards you, but anytime the game stopped to tell a story, I lost interest pretty quickly. Guess I just care more about Mother Ripley's adventures than Baby Ripley's, although I suppose I'm not against Amanda Ripley as a character, I just don't think they developed her all that well. Anyway, as far as the bingo board is concerned, in addition to guns and melee weapons, Ripley can also manufacture improvised explosive, many of which are built out of bottles, so I'm counting that as storing something in a bottle. And while this might be a stretch, I'm choosing to mark off Summon Someone in Battle for instances where you use sounds like gunfire or loud footsteps to bring the alien to your location when you're currently fighting someone else like a human. Might be bending the spirit of the text on that one, and it's certainly unconventional, but I think it counts. Frustratingly, Ripley pours a cup of coffee in the very first cutscene and offers it to Samuels, but doesn't drink one herself. And I found another vending machine that even had a burger, but it's set decoration, so no munching today. It took me 14 hours, 57 minutes, and 52 seconds to beat this one, so we can at least claim those 2 squares. We are so tantalizingly close, so let's see what the wheel has for us next. Fallout. I was introduced to this series via Fallout 3, and I'm more familiar with the Bethesda-era games, but I have given the original Fallout a shot before, for a little while, and I've had an itch to finish it. Not just because of the rampant insistence that the Interplay-era games are far superior by some Fallout fans, but also because the TV show, which I really liked by the way, made me want to experience more from this post-apocalyptic series. And I do enjoy a good apocalyptic adventure, so I was hoping that after finally getting through the original Fallout, it would live up to its lofty reputation. Thing is, I also know that Fallout 2 is generally seen as an improvement over this one, and that the gameplay is pretty dated to say the least, so I also wanted to temper my expectations a bit. Glad I did, because it helped me respect Fallout 1 even as it was kicking my ass. It's an old school PC role-playing game, so of course everything you do is heavily reliant on percentages and luck, including the combat, which is great on top of it feeling super stiff. And I got used to how it handles pretty quickly. Again, I already tried playing this once, so I knew the basics, but that doesn't exactly make it fun to play. Lots of saving, trying something, failing a bunch, maybe dying, or doing something I didn't intend, and reloading my save to do it all over again. The mantra of save before you do anything in Fallout will get you a long way, and if you're careful, getting through the main quests isn't a huge problem. At least until you save in combat and you can't access your save file anymore because it got corrupted, so you gotta play the last 30 minutes again, which definitely didn't happen to me. Why do you ask? Truthfully, most of the issues I have are little gripes that add up rather than any major underlying problem. The hex-based tile movement is fine until your companions block an entrance and you can't run past them or tell them to get out of the way. Thank you for being as helpful here, Ian, as you are when you get an automatic weapon. I know his AI is really dangerous with burst fire weapons, which I learned firsthand, but I gave him a Magnum pretty early on and he pulls his weight much better once I did. Sometimes it's not knowing how a system works that's the issue, such as dropping the dynamite you've just armed so it blows up at the door you want to open rather than, your own hands. Or managing your companion's inventory, which has to be done by using the steal command on them. I get the logic, but it's not something I'm used to when later games let us, talk to these dummies about why I should hold all the caps and drugs and best guns and equipment. Those are all situational troubles, yes, and if you can look past little eccentricities and sometimes broken mechanics, you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of playing the original Fallout. But there will definitely be some areas that deliver your head on a silver platter. For me, it was this hallway just outside the vault below the cathedral that was the worst. I prioritized stealth for this playthrough, and I probably would have gotten through just fine if my friends weren't drawing enemy fire, which means that enemies just immediately see me as well. So I hid behind a wall while they all got picked off, and then I could just sneak on through by myself. It wasn't a great feeling, but that's how it goes in the Wasteland. Unfortunately, this fight claimed the lives of my best friend Dogmeat, and I guess also Ian and Katya, plus those random followers of the Apocalypse Scouts that I don't remember asking to be there, but it was worth it to talk the Master down with my Mentat-addled big brain. I don't mean to talk about Fallout 1 as if it's this impenetrable archaic fortress or something. It is still approachable enough as long as you go in with the right mindset. That is, don't go into it guns blazing unless you know how to spec. This is a game that rewards patience and strategy if you know the skills to specialize in, although I'm sure there are tons of fun builds that turn you into a walking death machine. I was content to just cruise along working on my small guns and stealth scores because I admittedly really wanted to get this video done before the new year, so optimizing everything wasn't a priority. Which also meant I may have passed up a lot of great side quests and character interactions in my haste to get things done. I love the world of Fallout no matter who's telling the story, and I love that the Interplay games are simultaneously darker and far wackier. You can tell that this was made by geeks who love world building and pop culture references, and I know that if I popped back into my save file, I'd find several awesome interactions out in the ruins of the American West that I skimmed over. Maybe I'll have more time when I finally get to Fallout 2, which will complete my mainline Fallout journey if you don't count DLCs, or 76, which I have no interest in playing. Just not an MMO guy, really. Now, I only marked one bingo square down, but it's an important one for our purposes. There are quite a few melee weapons, some of which you can throw, like the spear. So let's check off throw a melee weapon, and bada bingo bada boom, we've got a line. That's the only thing I managed to find either, no repeats, not even storing something in a bottle, which you'd think would be a given considering all the Nuka-Cola around the wastelands. Ah well, after a relatively speedy 10-hour, 53 minutes, and 22-second run that mostly focused on main quests, I beat Fallout 1, and that means we can finish up card 3 with a bingo on column 5. It took quite a few more games to nail this card down and almost 70 hours of gameplay, but I really like these challenges, and I got to play some pretty awesome games for this run. As I mentioned at the start of this video, you can help me choose the games I play for the next Backlog Bingo video until the end of the year, which is now only a couple of days away, so check the link in the description if you haven't cast your votes. But for now, hope you have a great holiday season, and I'll see you in 2025.